The first question of the rapid fire is, at what age do you want to retire?
At what age do I want to retire? Right before I expire.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
Not too long. I work out in the morning and then I get ready, so I don't have a lot of hair. 10 minutes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
That's too many.
Favorite color?
Green.
What time of day are you most inspired?
Mornings, early mornings.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
Hours of sleep, I like at least 7.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming NFT trend is blank.
Using NFTs as a way to message large communities within an established brand.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
Los Angeles.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
Elon.
The biggest mistake of your career.
Biggest mistake of my career. I guess what I would say is for the biggest mistake of my career, I'm a venture capitalist. We make mistakes every single day. The vast majority of the investments we invest in fail. So lots of deals I looked at, I didn't understand, went on to become big, attractive companies. So there's that.
How do you relax?
I like playing video games.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
1.
A habit of yours that you hate.
Morning exercise, even when it's raining.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life.
To examine the assumptions behind why I'm doing something.
Your favorite Netflix show.
Fauda.
The last movie you saw that was memorable.
The last movie I saw that was memorable. James Bond.
The last song you've been listening to that you like.
Something from Rufus the Soul.
All right. That was the end of the rapid fire round. Now you can choose to elaborate on any one question that you felt you wanted to say more about, or we can go on to the big.
Yeah, we can go on.
Okay. So the first one is, can you share the story behind your journey as co-founder of Wax and how you became involved in the world of blockchain technology and video game virtual items?
Sure. So how did I get involved in crypto overall and then launch Wax? The real brief version of it is this. There was a world of virtual item trading that predates crypto by a long, long time, and that is video game virtual items. So I worked with my partner who invented the concept back in the 90s of trading video game virtual items for real money. The first game he did that on was a game called Ultima Online, which was a big game and the first really popular game in the West that allowed you to trade virtual items back and forth. It's not well known, but a lot of the early people who were embracing and trading cryptocurrencies were video game virtual item traders. So my partner had been running an exchange. I was on his board for trading video game virtual items. He sold that. And about a year later, he read about Bitcoin, read the white paper, and started to mine. And it took multiple times for him to convince me that Bitcoin, which is pretty much all it was back then, was something I should be serious about. But eventually I did. I was actually in Singapore helping a friend of mine open up her video game virtual item marketplace. And as she was driving me back to the airport, she said, "What do you think of Bitcoin?" And I thought, wow, you know what? that's the nudge I need to get educated. I went back to the US. My partner said, let me give you a couple hours of a pitch. He did, and that was it. From that point on, I thought, now I get it. Because he helped me really understand why blockchain and tokenization was super important. I think even to this day, even crypto people don't understand the difference between digitization and tokenization. Tokenization you can only do on a blockchain. So it was right around a little bit after Tether, where my partner and I were thinking of, hey, what if we started to trade video game virtual items, skins, using blockchains? Because the problem with video game virtual item trading is the video game companies never liked it. And they were always trying to shut it down, restrict the ability to do it. Anyone in video gaming knows this. So we thought if we moved this stuff to a blockchain, trading among people would be embraced. It wouldn't be something you'd have to stop. And finally in 2017, something happened that allowed us to do that, which was a guy named Dan Larimer, who I think has created more valuable blockchains than anyone else. I think he's created $4 billion blockchains. He came up with the concept of delegated proof of stake as a consensus mechanism for a blockchain. That, to us, seemed like a mechanism we could use to really get the trading volume, the transaction volume, at a low cost and a high enough transaction volume that we could do skins or video game virtual items. And it turned out to be true. To this day, I don't think delegated proof of stake consensus mechanism approach has any peer. Certainly better than, let's say, what the proof of stake system that Ethereum is using, and really almost any other. So that's how I got from pre-blockchain to where we are today.
What other technologies or paradigm shifts are video games at the forefront of?
So video games have, I think they're well known now for having ushered in the mass market adoption of a lot of different technologies. Video game companies are always pushing the envelope on what they're trying to do, whether if it's with graphics or with MMOGs, so massively multiplayer online gaming experiences, which are really what metaverses hope to be one day. The next area where video games will probably push something is going to be in the form of augmented reality. You saw a little bit of this when Niantic created the Pokemon craze, where you had this first attempt at augmented reality among consumers or game players. So I don't think the new Apple goggles are going to be well embraced. The price point, of course, is a very, very expensive and big barrier to entry for consumers at $3,500 US. But also, people don't like wearing things on their faces for long periods of time. But whatever drives, and I don't know what that's going to be, a mass market technology that allows people to have a wearable, easy to use, long battery life, heavy piece of equipment for people to experience augmented reality, the first place that's going to get the uptake is going to be in some video game. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't even know what the exact form factor for augmented reality is going to be, but I know what it's not going to be. I learned a long time ago that people don't like wearing things on their head for long periods of time if they don't have to. So we have to wait until it's contact lenses or glasses, I think, for that to happen. But when it does, gaming will be what really drives usage.
And Google Lens also failed. So Google Glasses, sorry. So that wasn't even as heavy as...
Yeah, Google Glasses failed because there was such a chasm between what people hoped for. I thought we were going to be able to put on their glasses and we would see out a few feet from our eyes a screen of some sort. That's what I thought we were going to get. Instead, we got something that was almost comical. A little square in your periphery that you could look at that really had no good use case to get people to want to use it. So Having said that, I think the Google Glasses form factor is superior to the goggles that Apple's come out with.
So which video games do you think are at the forefront of technological change? Which ones are actually trying to bring in new technology?
Well, all of the top video games, anything, let's say that Valve, the guys who created Steam, so think of like well, not Fortnite, but CSGO, right? Counter-Strike. Think of things like the console-based games, right? Where there's massive technology that's been invested. All of them are really pushing graphics. That's really the main dimension that you can push. Gameplay itself, there's not a lot of innovation around. There's roughly 4 or 5 different popular game mechanics that everybody embraces, and it's getting just the right combinations right. So, lots of first-person shooter people liked Rainbow Six, they liked CSGO, and then why am I blanking on it? PUBG came along, and PUBG was amazing. It was a last man standing kind of battle royale game mechanic. I don't know why, but I absolutely loved it, and got to be super popular. But if you looked at what it was doing, there was nothing in and of itself that was that different than a lot of other games that came before it. The idea of crates, right, where you can get a loot box in a game, that's an old mechanic, but still one of the dominant mechanics. All you have to look at is, where do video game revenues come from? And virtually all of them come from the sale of video game virtual items, $200 billion a year and growing. So it seems like a lot of the same things are what drive people playing the games, but they get just these small elements like different. You mentioned Fortnite, really not that much different between Fortnite and PUBG, right? But for some reason, a lot more people liked Fortnite. So I build video games, and I got to tell you, you never know what's going to catch on. It just, when mobile came around, that was a brand new form factor. And of course, a bunch of companies that natively built in mobile, so the game was never available before on PC or on console. They learned how to do certain things that work well with a phone. So now you've got mobile as a giant category, but you still have PC games and console games that are still popular. If it was deterministic, if we knew the formula for making something a hit game, then there'd be a lot more of them. I do know that version 1.0 of blockchain video gaming was a good experiment, but it's not been successful as judged against the other dominant platforms like mobile or PC, browser-based games, or console. So we have a lot more work to do for the blockchain-based games to reach that, threshold of popularity.
When did you get into gaming itself? What got you into games?
So, video gaming has had a whole series of, gaming.
Gaming.
Playing games.
Yes.
Has obviously existed for thousands of years. So the first games I was playing, because I'm old, was games in arcades. Arcades dominated in the 70s and the 80s. That's what we played. And then I started really getting excited about them when you could buy things like Trash 80s, which were Radio Shack built computers, and you could play simple games on those. And then I went much more then into console-based games. I'm a first-person shooter gaming guy, so console, I think, had some great ones. And then I started to get pretty excited when game companies came up with this concept of allowing people to trade these digital items within games. Really, that was more the late 90s. So I'd always been playing them, but as anyone in this industry knows, there is sort of like a ramp up from, children to people in late teens, early 20s play a lot of games, especially guys. And then as you have to earn a living, they drop a lot. And I'm no different from anyone else. My gameplay has dropped a lot as well. I still like the first-person shooter games. Those are easier to jump in and jump out. My partner really likes the RPGs, the role-playing games. Never been a fan of those, even though those are probably the most popular games globally, but just not interesting to me. And blockchain-based games I liked because there was a lot around economics and trading that the blockchain games could incorporate. Also with NFTs, which is the primary way blockchain-based games make revenue, you could do cool things with them because you could never take a traditional video game virtual item and make it intelligent. But you can do that with an NFT because it's literally a virtual machine. It's a microcomputer. That's what NFTs are. So you can program them to do a lot of fantastic things. This, by the way, is one of the reasons I would give for why blockchain as a gaming platform has taken longer to take off, because there's a lot more complexity of incorporating gameplay with blockchain because of this need to interact with a smart contract. And while it opens up a lot of possibilities, it also can be a bit overwhelming.
So what are some of the current limitations or obstacles that blockchain technology faces when applied to the gaming industry? And how are you working to address them?
Yeah, so the limitations on blockchain-based games, the first is quite obvious. It's complicated. It's much more complicated than a console game, than a mobile game, than a browser-based game. And as a result of that, the adoption's been much slower. When we did Wax, we built Wax. It was the first blockchain purpose-built for media files to be easily transmitted across it. And initially, those were NFTs. And to have to convince people to first invest something in the technology, you had to do that with phones. I'm old enough to remember how many years it took for people, the average person, to own a phone. PCs, it took several decades. Blockchain has taken a long time, and maybe it'll take longer than those two platforms because it is more complicated. So consumers embrace convenience. Things that aren't convenient, they don't want to do. And that's our biggest hurdle. With Wax, we decided we weren't just going to build a blockchain. We were going to have a marketplace that would allow you to trade items within a game, and we would have a wallet that was native to the Wax blockchain. No blockchain layer one had ever done that, where they built all the piece parts. I referred to it more as the Apple model versus the Microsoft model. Microsoft came out with DOS and then Windows, and then said, that's sort of the operating system for the PC. All you vendors build stuff that's going to be working with those things. But it takes a while to do it, and standards aren't perfect, and so it's a little janky. We wanted it to be much more seamless. We were the first guys who built a wallet that allowed for OAuth, or the ability for people to log in with their traditional, like Google or Facebook password and credentials. So that made it easier to sign up and to use it. But it's still more of a foreign thing. And that results in fewer people being willing to invest the time to embrace it. And then the other thing that has caused it to take a bit longer is that blockchains are not ideal platforms for everything. In fact, I would go as far to say as a blockchain is the worst way to do most things. It's not like a SQL database. It's not like a traditional database that can process things really fast. And as a result, there's a delay as transactions have to take time to be confirmed by the distributed blockchain validators. And that slows it down. Games are fast. So having that time lag is another impediment. So what we need is something that a blockchain can do in a game that can't be done with any other platform, and that's attractive enough that people say, okay, I'll do it. For instance, I remember when mobile games first became a thing. I think Jammed Out was the first one I ever saw. And it was like a little, you could play bowling on this little Samsung or Nokia feature phone. It was awful. But it was fun if you had the phone, and you could take it everywhere with you. And it was that untethered convenience of a game platform in your pocket that actually also was a phone that I think led to people saying, well, it's kind of a shitty interface, but I always have it on and it's always with me. So I'll explore and try out games when I'm, got 5-minute break between tasks or something. We need something like that for blockchain, for where we find a mechanic that only blockchains can do, that can be integrated within a video game, and then I think we'll see it take off.
So how do you incorporate those aspects in your operation?
So sustainability. Well, first I would say, we all know now that proof of work blockchains consume a lot of energy, and Bitcoin is probably the preeminent example of that. Now, not a well-known fact, but the majority of Bitcoin mining is done using renewable energy like solar and other forms, wind. So I think Bitcoin gets a bad rap, but in prior, it did use a lot of energy. So proof of stake, on the other hand, has no more energy consumption than, let's say, an e-commerce site. So when we built Wax, we built it to be proof of stake, and therefore, I think the energy consumption equal to, let's say, an e-commerce site, we're doing a pretty good job there. The other is, and I would switch from now Wax to Tether. Tether allows for, I think, one of the great transfers or recaptures of value from a few privileged firms or people in the world back to humanity. And this is because by tokenizing a currency, you allow for someone to hold it outside of a bank. And that means they don't have to convert that currency into their native currency. So if someone in Europe buys something or sells something from someone in the United States, and that US person sends them Tether, and that is tokenized US dollars, that person doesn't have to convert that US dollar into euros. Now, by not having to convert it, by being able to hold it natively as dollars, what do they save? Well, they don't have the transaction fees that you would normally have if you were using, let's say, a credit or a debit card. But those fees often pale in comparison to a much bigger tax on global consumers and even businesses, and that is currency conversion costs. So currency conversion costs are the tax you pay when you switch from one currency to another. It's probably the largest, mostly invisible tax that virtually everyone in every business has to pay and is captured by only a few thousand firms globally. These are firms that have been granted a special privilege by their governments to do currency exchange. And all you have to do is look at the Bible. Who were the most hated people in the Bible? It was the currency exchange people who were licensed by the temple to conduct business. So that's still the case here. The difference is it's a hidden tax because you never really understand what that currency conversion is costing you. So in a roughly $80 trillion global economy, that's $80 trillion equivalent is produced every year among the nations. There is maybe 25 trillion or so that's cross-border commerce related, and roughly about $1 trillion out of that $80 trillion economy is taken or captured by a few firms globally for the privilege of converting your currency. So one of the things, I would say this, if the only thing blockchain did, if its only contribution was to allow tokenized fiat currency and to allow consumers and businesses globally to no longer have to convert their currencies every time they travel from one place to another, that $1 trillion going back in the hands of the people is going to be used for something and hopefully used and spent in a better way than the firms who capture it now.
And what are some of the new and exciting things you're doing with Tether at this point? What is your next horizon?
So we might not want to ask me that question since I'm no longer working with Tether, right?
Okay. So in that case,
I, like everybody else, use it, but I only I'm really focused on media files, wax, and taking hopefully helping the gaming industry, hopefully the music, and the NFTs are a very useful technology, and that I'm putting a lot of time into NFTs, but not in the traditional way that we saw the last couple of years.
All right. So have you seen everything that NFTs can do, or is there anything new?
So when it comes to NFTs, we've almost seen nothing that NFTs can do. And briefly, I want to help people understand what an NFT really is. What it's not is a pretty picture, a snippet of a film, or a snippet of a musician's performance. Those are applications of NFTs. An NFT is this really remarkable piece of technology. It's actually a mini computer. That NFT is what we would call in blockchain speak a virtual machine, but it's a mini computer, and a computer that can be transferred between people and programmed to do essentially anything any other computer can be programmed to do. So the first kind of instantiation of it was putting pictures or images that could be traded back and forth, and then we put video on it, music. And I'm actually quite pleased that we did do that, because it introduced not just NFTs, but even blockchains to consumers to finally say, oh, I see what I can do with these. But we haven't scratched the surface, is what I would tell people, because it's like if somebody said, what can you do with software? I think the right answer is, well, I guess it's only limited by your imagination. NFTs are software. They're computers. They can program to do anything. So as a result, what I suspect will happen is, as industry, as businesses start to understand that these are just virtual items, call them emojis, that can actually be programmed to do anything you want them to do, we're going to see a lot more people. I think virtually every industry on Earth will, in the end, incorporate NFTs. They may not call them that. They might have some other word for them, but they're going to send you tokenized objects. And the difference between a tokenized object, let's say an NFT, and a digital object like an emoji is several. One, the digital object can't really be programmed. It's just a flat file, whereas the tokenized one can, as long as it's talking to a smart contract. But also, it has this amazing feature where it's really the only thing I know on Earth that has this feature, where someone can send something to another person electronically, and the recipient of that thing can hold that or receive it and know instantly, at virtually no cost, and know with certainty that the thing they got is the genuine article. There's nothing else I know of that has that property. You can't give somebody gold or what they claim is gold, and it's gold. You need to assay test it. You can't give them diamonds. You can't give them an email and say, this is the original email. There's really nothing like it. And so the ability to send something digitally or electronically, and for them to know it's not a copy, it's the original, and it's never been tampered with, because one of the beautiful things about a tokenized item is it can't be edited. You can't change it. So what they're getting is the original copy. Now, if you start to educate businesses of the world, governments of the world, who issue things like passports or other forms of ID, who issue certificates of authenticity, and you can tell them, by the way, the nice thing about this is it can never be counterfeited, well, their imaginations can start helping them figure out all the things their customers might want that have those properties. By the way, all you have to do is think about one of the most counterfeited things on Earth, which is the US $20 bill or $100 bill. North Korea makes dollar bills, $100 bills so perfect that even the US Treasury has a hard time figuring them out. Well, Isn't it amazing to think that you could tokenize a $20 bill or $100 bill, and by doing so, putting it in that NFT wrapper, you would know without any effort and at no cost it was genuine? So think about NFTs in this way. They're like an envelope that assures whatever inside it has never been tampered with and is the genuine thing. That is the future of NFTs.
Right. So the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
Well, I've told people for many years now that my focus at the end of my career, because I've been around a long time, is at the intersections of global e-commerce, blockchain, and cross-border trading. So in that intersection is where I think blockchains have a ton to add in value. And that's an area where we see some of the fastest growth from an economic standpoint. So this is where I want to be. And I don't think I'll be jumping into anything else before I eventually retire at some point in the future when I can no longer walk. I am William Quigley, co-founder of Tether and Wax. Catch me at the Marketeer of the Month podcast.